you're reprogramming your subconscious mind, and your brain's going to come up with epiphanies on stuff like, hey, I should go here today. I should do this today. I should look this up today. And it's like, when you get that, you have to act on it. And when you act on those epiphanies, that's what will lead you to your goals.
Now, if you believe it on the spiritual side, you have to understand too that whenever you ask for something, that other things might get moved out the way.
You're listening to the premier podcast for men who want to not only be better with women, but want to be better men in general. This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host, Paul Bauer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another week of Come On Man. If you haven't done so already, please like, subscribe, hit those notifications. Sound off in the live chat if you guys are watching on Monday morning. And if I'm usually in there editing videos, so I might talk in there. So sound off. If I'm not in there, talk amongst yourselves. That's fine. If you guys are watching on the replay, drop a comment below. That helps boost us in the algorithms. And if you guys are listening on your favorite audio platform of choice, give us a 5-star review and actually write out why you like the show. That helps us on the charts as well. Helps us get in front of more men. Send super chats. That supports the show. It's a pre-record, so I can't obviously bring it up on screen, but I will screenshot it and share it on the back end on social media if you guys do that. Speaking of social media, follow me on all social media platforms. The links are in the description. Get on the email list.comeonmanpod.com. Get your PDF with 20 dating app openers that are guaranteed to capture a woman's attention in the first 7 words, and I'll also mail you some stickers as well for your troubles. Check out the Practical Law of Attraction course, guys, for the entire month of November. You can get the course for 30% off with code THANKFUL2023 at checkout. So if you've been waiting to do it, now's your time, okay? I'll play a commercial for that in a minute. Join the beer club, guys. beer.comeonmanpod.com. It's a good group of dudes. It's only $10 a month. And we have monthly meetups where we actually meet up. You hang out with me. We have some beers. We talk about guy stuff. You know what I mean? It's a good outlet for our mental health. And then finally, you can do one-on-one coaching with me directly at gumroad.comeonmanpod.com. I don't have a team. I don't have a bunch of schedulers. Like, you're working with me one-on-one. Okay. I'm not signing you up for something and then having you work with somebody you've never heard of. Okay. You're working with me one-on-one for that. Check that out. All right, guys. Joining me this week on the podcast is he's sort of an up-and-comer in the podcast space. His name is Hank Russell, and he's got a podcast that he just started. I mean, it's brand spanking new. It's called the Hank Russell Invitation Podcast. He had me on it. I think I was like his, 8th guest or something like that. This dude used to work in radio, so he's a professional broadcaster, and he's been in the radio business for a long time, and now he's making the transition to podcasting. And he's followed me. He's been following me for a long time. He's not like a red pill guy or anything like that. He's just a regular dude. Has a very interesting story. We talk about all sorts of stuff in this podcast, but he is a law of attraction guy. He's a law of attraction guy. So we get into some of the law of attraction stuff in this episode. It's a fun conversation. He's a good dude. And I will bring you that conversation right after these words. Are you struggling to find a good quality woman? They are very rare indeed these days. If you spend any time at all watching content in the men's podcast space, or you spend time on dating apps or going out to clubs, you're seeing low quality, promiscuous women. You're finding women with daddy issues and personality disorders, or a myriad of other red flags, and you are frustrated. I get it, brother, but what if I were to tell you that the reason why you're only seeing these types of women is because of your mindset? Because of your paradigm. We get what we focus on in life, and you have trained your mind to focus on the type of women that you don't want. So those are the types of women that keep showing up for you again and again. Let's change that mindset today. If you're a guy looking to attract high quality, submissive women into your life, then I've got the perfect solution for you. And let me tell you, brother, it's all about mindset. That's right. You've got to reprogram your thinking to focus on the type of women you do want. That's where my Practical Law of Attraction course comes in. It's packed with proven psychology-based techniques that will help you manifest your dream woman. Trust me, You won't find this stuff anywhere else. Explained in such a simple, easy to use way. And let me tell you, when you start using these methods, you'll be amazed at how quickly things start changing for you. Picture this, you're out on the town, feeling confident and magnetic. All the women are drawn to you like moths to a flame. And best of all, you're attracting the type of women that are submissive and high quality. It's not that they weren't there before, it's that you weren't aware of them before. My course will teach you how to be more hyper aware of the kind of women that you actually want. It will teach you to believe that you're the most attractive man around. And when you believe it, you'll carry yourself that way. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for my course today. Visit loa.comeonmanpod.com. That's loa.comeonmanpod.com. Start living the life you've always dreamed of. Don't miss out on this opportunity to up your game and find the woman of your dreams. The law of attraction is nothing without action. So what are you waiting for? Act now. All right, joining me on the podcast today is someone I would consider a regular dude with a podcast, but he had me on his show and I thought it'd be good to introduce him to my audience as well. His name is Hank Russell. What's going on, brother?
Hey, bro. How you been tonight?
I've been good, man. I've been good. It's, we just, at the time of this recording, there's a space-time continuum here, but at the time of this recording, I just recorded an episode on your channel last week on Friday. So that was fun. That was fun. It's been nonstop basically since that recording on Friday. It's like two streams on Saturday and just, you know, Monday morning stream. We're recording today. It's just been like bam, 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 bam. Nonstop work, man.
I know it's, you know, when I was in radio, man, like I did this like 5 days a week most of the time. And it's just insane that, you know, when I complain about, oh man, you know, I love doing this, but I just did it yesterday. And then, you know, my schedule's crowded today. I'm like, well, wait a second. I used to do this 5 days a week. So what am I bitching about?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I did a show. Some of the guys that really follow the podcast, they know this. But years ago, back when I was like really embracing my you know, my geekiness, you know, I was really you know, deep into the nerdery of IT and stuff. I had a show. On YouTube. It's still out there. You can find it. It's called Tech Chop. And I originally started that show as like a fun sort of, you know, labor of love. It was once a month, you know, I would put together something, and then it started getting sponsors, and the sponsors wanted shows every week. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll have to come up with something every week. And it became a chore. Like it became a job. And I was like, I do not like this anymore. It's boring. I hate it. I hate having to come up with content. This, on the other hand, the dating and relationship stuff is what I usually talk about. Like, I love this stuff and I could talk about forever. I love having guests on. Like today, you know, you're not really like a dating guru type guy. You're a regular guy. And so we're just going to have fun today. But this kind of stuff is fun. Just talking with other men out there, you know?
Well, you know, the thing about it is that experience is your best teacher, obviously. So there's, you know, as far as like my extensive with dating, I have learned more what to not do than what to do exactly. So I don't consider myself a dating expert. Do I have some guru type knowledge about other things? Absolutely. But you know, we would revert to guys like you and the guys on the panel that you do with every Saturday. And it's just very knowledgeable. I was shocked at how knowledgeable it was, you know?
Yeah, that was a fun episode too, because that one, again, space-time continuum. It was the episode on alpha widows, and we use the sort of clickbaity stuff of talking about Hollywood chicks that have been, you know, that are still pining for some guy, but we use it as a way to leverage that into talking about knowledge, you know, about like sexual dynamics and stuff. So I always like doing that kind of thing. So yeah, so radio, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Were you a DJ, a producer? Like, what'd you do?
It evolved. Like, if you're talking over the span of 19 years, you know, before the COVID hit and stuff like that, you know, I could produce and run my own show at the same time when I was younger, because that's how you kind of do things, is that, you know, you have to learn both. Sometimes you have to do both because you have to pay for a producer. And, you know, if you don't have enough money to pay for a producer, then you got to do both. Then as time evolved, I just became a talk show host. Like, there is a difference between disc jockey and radio broadcaster. For those of y'all under the age of like 20 that don't get that concept, there is a difference between a DJ and a radio broadcaster. And by the time, I'd gotten out of radio, I was a radio broadcaster, so to speak. And
okay,
the conversations would be kind of like what you and I are having, except maybe not quite as intimate, just because, time frame, language, all a little bit lack of freedom.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Cause a disc jockey is a guy that's like, hey, getting ready to play the next hit. And then he throws on the music and then he's off. And
right.
And then a radio broadcaster, someone that actually conducts interviews and is a personality on the air, much like this.
Right. Well, even like when you do the talk show, like when I could do it on my podcast if I wanted to, but I'm trying to give off the vibe of more of, the podcaster thing, as opposed to, ladies and gentlemen from the studio, Hank Russell. Well, I want to introduce my producer, and then it'd be like, sitting on the throne alone, my name is Hank Russell. That was one of my catchphrases, sitting on the throne alone, Hank Russell. And you just don't see that in podcasting. So yeah.
Not too much. Not too much. But then again, do you think that's because in radio, it's more of a profession, and podcasters podcasting, anybody can do it. 100%. Anybody could with a microphone.
100%. I don't want to sound stuck up or perturbed about these things, but I'm classically trained. You can hear it in my voice. I took speech therapy. I went to broadcasting school. I learned these things in broadcasting. I mean, I am classically trained at radio broadcasting. And then you look at these guys that are doing these podcasts, which I'm not knocking as much because, I'm being a hypocrite now, but doing a podcast, but there's, okay, here's where it gets a little deeper. I would, if you want to, I don't know if this is one of your questions, but how did I get into broadcasting? Is that one of them, or?
I do have one. I do have that question coming up. So go ahead. Yeah. Tell that story.
Okay. Well, here's the deal. When I was 14 years old, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. I have an uncle that lives in Fort Worth, Texas, or he did. He passed away a few years ago, but he did a country music radio station when I was 14. Fell in love with it. I knew from the time I was 14, I went to school for it. When I graduated high school, all that. When somebody like Warren Sapp or these other guys, and no offense to like athletes and stuff like that, but they got into it to be athletes, and now they're famous podcasters because of their recognition. I didn't get into broadcasting because I wanted to be a athlete first. I wanted to be a broadcaster. I love pro wrestling. Didn't want to wrestle. I wanted to be a commentator for it. That's my thing. And that's where, and that's how I got into it, was through that, and went to school for it. And I know it's a long drawn out answer, but that's why, to answer your question, I consider it more of a profession.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to do this my whole life.
Got it. Okay. You said you did speech therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend. He wrote a book. He's also on the Rule Zero panel on Saturdays. His name is Thor, RP Thor.
I like that guy. I saw him.
Yeah, he has a whole section in his book on it's called Dominant Masculine Presence, on how to have a more masculine voice. I would say that if you listen to classically trained radio broadcasters, a lot of those guys do, and you do, and I would say you do too. You have a sort of the deeper sort of projecting voice.
Yes.
That commands attention.
It does. And okay, like in hip hop culture, like, that's a very masculine type music, or at least it used to be. Nowadays, I consider it a little bit more androgynistic, but the idea of like the 80s and early 90s, when those guys would speak, they would rap, and they might have their own slang words and stuff like that, but they spoke. It was not, talking from your nostril as much. It was more like, bass, how low can you go? Nowadays with, hip hop, they talk like, man, talk from their nostrils or their nasal. Even the women do it nowadays. And, regardless of race, it's part of hip hop culture. I'm talking from a nasal, come on, man, things like that. And that to me doesn't command respect. If your doctor talked to you like that while you're about to have surgery underneath, I mean, would you take him seriously?
Probably not. Well, I mean, it's like everybody talks like that these days. So
Yeah.
I think most people don't notice it until they hear somebody with a more of a deeper voice. So is that this voice that you use now, is that become like your default? Did you learn to talk that way, and so now this is just how you talk, or did you used to talk differently before you were trained?
I wouldn't say I talked differently. I guess I was so young when I took speech therapy that I didn't know any better. As far, like, I've had this kind of voice for most of my life. I mean,
Okay.
And that's just how it is. I mean, granted, maybe if I've had a few cocktails, or, maybe like if I'm around you know how they say you're the sum of the 5 people you're around.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm around at a hip hop concert and everybody's talking like that at a hip hop concert, then that's probably going to be contagious on my end, and I'll probably talk that way too. So,
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So are you done? You're not working in radio anymore, or are you?
No, not anymore. No.
Okay.
I would, if they would hawk up the money enough to where I could make a living off of it again. And I really couldn't make a living off of it anyway for a while there. It's most of the time it's a part-time gig. There's not a whole lot of money in it unless, I mean, you could get certain sponsorships and you could be covered for a while. It could be a feast, but then all of a sudden, like when a 3-month contract ends, then it's famine again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm giving this a shot. I've been doing this video podcast for, a little bit shorter than most, but at the same time, I'm always willing to go in that direction if I could get a job. It's all about how can I take care of myself financially. And with this podcast, I want to be able to help people and take care of people financially.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to get into that some more, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. I used to be an avid radio listener, especially talk radio.
Yeah.
Love talk radio. I think that's why I like podcasts so much. But I used to listen to like Howard Stern in the morning, right? And he used to say, like, years ago, this was before he moved off to Sirius and stuff like that. He was still on terrestrial radio, but he used to say all the time it was a dying medium. Would you agree with that? It's a dying medium?
I think it's dying, but it'll never die. Not until somebody throws in the last person throws in the towel. I think that here's what I think. The way radio is right now, I don't know if High Heart still owes this, but in a short time ago, they owed $15 billion in debt, right? So all these people like Steve Harvey and D.L. Hughley and all these nationally syndicated people, and they had more than that. They couldn't afford to keep them on the air. Not Steve Harvey, on the other hand, and D.L. Hughley, they're big, so they'll never have that problem. But they had others that were nationally syndicated. And now they're going to the guys that they cut off, they're going back to local. So that's where I see it, is that there will always be an audience. Like if you listen to sports radio, particularly in your local area, talk show, that's where it will come into play as far as like, where it'll stay alive, right? It'll stay alive through sports radio. As far as conversationalists, like what you and I have, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't know with the idea of podcasts now, that might die out. But as far as like your local sports radio, I think that'll be around for at least another 20 years.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting because it's like a lot of, I've noticed a lot of like, especially music stations, right? They've gotten rid of the classical disc jockey. They've gone to a completely automated format. A lot of the Jack FM type stations where it's literally just, they don't have records anymore. They all just put it on a music list, playlist. They just play it. It's 24/7. It's all computerized and stuff. Like they don't even need to pay people anymore. It's sad. So I think, AM radio where you have AM news and that sort of thing, that's probably still going to be around. But then again, there's podcasts everywhere. Everyone's got a podcast, and a lot of people like to listen to podcasts, and there's not a lot of commercials with podcasts when there's a lot of commercials with radio. So yeah, I think it just depends on what you can do locally. Now nationally, I'm not saying it can't happen, but look at Howard Stern. He's no longer on. You have to go to satellite radio now, if I'm not mistaken, to get him, right? I think so. Yeah. He went to Sirius, man, years ago. I've never listened to one show on Sirius XM. So what does that tell you? Even a lot of shows on Sirius and they have podcasts too. So I listened to Busted Open. I think that's probably the number one podcast on Sirius.
Is that the one? Is that the one with Bubba Ray Dudley?
Yeah. I think it's the number one rated. It might not be the number one of all time. It's definitely number one rated in wrestling radio show. They also have a podcast. It's called the Busted Open Podcast, and it's just clips, like segments of their show that you can get for free by downloading the podcast. So you don't even have to pay for Sirius,
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. I love the podcast. I listen to it all the time with Bubba Ray Dudley. I may not like him as a person, but he's got a good show.
Yeah. I wonder what he's like as a person in real life.
I don't, and this will kind of cut into part of my story too. When I was younger, I used to commentate pro wrestling. It was something I did when I was like 17 up until I was 21 consistently, while I was going to school and radio and stuff like that. And I've met some pretty big stars back then, and they said he was a big prick from what I heard.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. When you were doing it for like an indie wrestling promotion?
Yeah. Local. And it was on TV for a while. We had, back then that was when you still could get, and this is 2001, I think. And this was back when I was probably 16, 17 years old, something like that. And back then you could, there were still only 35, 40 channels at most. So unless you bought like one of those satellite dishes, which, couldn't afford that back then.
Mm-hmm.
So fun.
Okay. Yeah. I like to go to local indie wrestling events because you get to be up close and personal with the action. You get to be like right down by the ring. And then a lot of times the indie promotions will have guys that are former WWE guys, that are not on the roster right now, but they're traveling around still doing the indie circuit thing. So I've met Rey Mysterio. I've met Al Snow. I've met Diamond Dallas Page.
Oh, wow.
I met Eric Bischoff doing this.
Nice. Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's funny. I met, I don't know if you know who he is, Josh Alexander. He was the Impact World Champion for a while.
I remember him.
So I took my girlfriend Nurse Chick to a local event in Salt Lake City, and we got Diamond Dallas Page's autograph. We met Eric Bischoff, and Eric Bischoff, he's a prick. He's a real prick in real life. And then we come over to the table, and Josh Alexander's sitting there, and I'm like, oh wow, Josh Alexander, the world champ and stuff. My girlfriend's just like, she knew that these guys were somebody, but she didn't know who they were because she wasn't. I mean, I just got her into wrestling, but she still doesn't know who's who.
Sure.
And so then we go and sit down, and someone's mentioning Josh Alexander. She goes, "Oh, Josh Alexander, the world champ." I go, "Yeah, you just met him." She's like, "The Josh Alexander?" Yes, babe. You literally just shook his hand.
That's hilarious. No, I've never, like I said, let's see. I met a few that were big, like John Cena. I met him when he was the prototype. He was, I believe he was. I sure did. John. It was probably 2001, 2000. Yeah, somewhere around there, 2001, 2002. I met him. You remember Mordecai? He wore all white in 2003. He was kind of the opposite of the Undertaker.
Okay. Oh, no, I'm thinking of somebody else. Okay. Anyway, so that was his gimmick, was the opposite of the Undertaker.
Yeah. Well, he was kind of like, he had the cross and he was white. He had all white on, and he had, he had fire and stuff behind him, but it was more relating towards, Christianity, I guess, so to speak.
Okay.
But it was a pretty good gimmick. But anyway, I got to hang out with him one time. Danny Doring. You remember Danny Doring?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I got to meet him a couple times, and just incredible. I actually got to work shows with Kamala and Big Daddy V Viscera, or King Mabel, as some people call him, and those guys are from Memphis. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. You got to remember, that was the capital of wrestling forever. Jerry Lawler, Jimmy Hart, all those guys. So that was definitely, I definitely have some wrestling roots in my background.
I think my most fun meeting wrestler story was I took my kids to Salt Lake City to go see an AEW show, and it was the last AEW show right before the pandemic shut down.
Oh, wow.
Right. So we drove out there, we went to the show, and because everyone was scared about COVID, half the people didn't show up to the event. So they moved us all to one side of the arena for TV. The whole other side of the arena was blacked out with, with tarps and stuff like that. And great show. And we actually got moved to better seats because of that.
Yes.
And so after we were done with the show, my daughter's like, well, there's an In-N-Out burger. We don't have In-N-Out where I'm at. So she's like, oh, there's an In-N-Out. Let's go to In-N-Out. So, okay. So after the show, we go to In-N-Out, and I shit you not, like 12 of the wrestlers were there at In-N-Out eating.
Oh, nice.
Right. And so I'm like, holy shit, that's, that's Orange Cassidy. Oh shit. That's, who was it? The Best Friends. Those guys were there. A couple of the guys from the Dark Order were there. Blade from Butcher and the Blade was there.
Yeah.
And what's his name? Joey Janela, Bad Boy Joey Janela. Was there.
Yeah, I know he is.
Yeah, and so anyway, we go get our food. We go sit down, and I'm like, I'm gonna go over there and talk to them. And my daughter's like, no, Dad, don't. Oh my God, no. And I'm like, forget it. Like they're probably used to this shit all the time, right? So I go over there with my son. And I walk up, just, hey guys, just want to let you know you guys had a great show tonight or whatever. And they're like, oh, hey, thank you. They're all eating. And Joey Janela is he's standing there, and he's short. He's shorter than me. And he's just looking at me like, what the fuck, dude? Like, what the fuck? He looked like he was getting ready to square off and stuff. And I was like, hey, easy there, Joey Janela. I'm not trying to throw down with you, man. That was fun though.
Oh yeah. I probably would have been starstruck if I had met MJF. He's my favorite heel right now in all of wrestling. I think he's the best. He's
the best heel, bar none, out there right now. He's the best heel of his generation for sure.
He's reincarnated like Roddy Piper and a little bit of flair mixed in there.
Yeah,
and he can actually wrestle.
What I love about him though is he doesn't do a bunch of crazy shit. He doesn't need to. He's an old school guy, so he will work the crowd, and he doesn't do dumbass dives. He's not doing flips off the top rope down into the floor and shit. He's not doing any of that. He doesn't have to.
The only thing I'll say is that he does do some of the craziest bumps, like when he takes a pile driver or bumps on the corner of the ring or whatever. Those are dangerous looking, at least from where I'm sitting. But other than that, you don't see him doing a whole lot of like Daredevil type shit.
He does if he does a spot like that, it's usually at a pay-per-view where it means something. He doesn't do it like on a a nightly Wednesday episode. Yeah, he's old school smart, I would say. Going back to your podcast, so your podcast is relatively new. I think I was on your 8th episode.
Yes.
Of Attraction book you'll ever need to read.
Absolutely.
How did you first hear about Andrew?
Honestly, I've seen, the only place you can really get outside of a spiritual supply store as far as books and stuff like that is based on the law of attraction is like Books A Million or Barnes and Noble. You can't really get them at a whole lot of local bookstores because they're not really familiar with the law of attraction. So he had one. So there was, I was looking up tons of law of attraction books and stuff like that. And I Googled and seen what it was. And then there was one that says the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read.
Yeah.
And so
it's a great title.
It is. I love it.
Marketing wise, it's genius.
Oh, I love it. I wish that I had the brain to be able to write a book like that, but I'm hoping to write a book of my own one day. But so then I read the book, and on the back of the book, it said, hey man, contact me if you want to do a little session to talk about. This was a year and a half ago. This is like February of 2022 or something like that. So I told Andrew, I said, we never actually talked until the actual show. And on the email, I'm like, dude, I want to get my lesson. I want to talk to you. Can we talk a little bit before the show and stuff like that? He goes, because no, I don't want to do that right now. I want to do it the first time that we talk, and then I'll give you your lesson. So I've been planning. He was actually supposed to be my first guest ever. He was actually, and because I've been working on this video podcast for about almost 3 years before I even started, about 2.5 years or so before I started it. And anyway, he was supposed to be my first, but so I had to wait a year and a half to even talk to the guy, much less interview him. So we do. So if you watch it on, on my video podcast, then, after we do our interview, then he talks to me privately, and I have it recorded for another 30 minutes about my personal goals. That's the thing about it. I could probably, as far as guru type situations, I've been studying the law of attraction for years. I could probably carry on a show about the law of attraction if I wanted to. But it was an honor to talk to Andrew. And he told me that, and you can watch on the footage, I said, the next time that we talk, we'll show you how to write a book. So next time him and I have a show together, he's going to talk to me about how to write a book.
That's good. He also has a book on how to sell 100,000 copies.
Yeah.
So he's a good person to talk to. So when what did you learn from him about law of attraction that most people would find surprising about it?
I think honestly, it's the feeling. I don't know. All right. Even okay. Here's the thing about it. Even if you're an atheist, there is a certain energy is scientifically proven. They've proven that scientifically over the years. And what I learned, and I think that everybody else would be shocked about, is the type of energy you put out there. It's contagious. Like if you and I are standing in the same room and I had a bad day, or it's 6 o'clock in the morning, I don't feel like, I'm like, then it's going to rub off on you. Now, if I perk up a little bit, I think it'll rub off on you. And I believe vice versa. If everybody had the same mentality, then it could be contagious and there would be less sorrow and sadness. And then it would actually allure us to be able to find what we need in life, whether it's, happiness or job, whatever it is it's trying to do. I think that it can bring it. I think it can bring what it is that you're trying to desire. And it definitely is a great assistance in it.
One thing that I learned from his book is really good. And I'm like you, like I've been studying it for a long time. I've read so many books on it. I've read some books multiple times.
Yeah.
And then I read his book, and one of the things that that I learned from him that I thought was genius was, well, two things. One, most of the time when you learn about law of attraction, you learn about, maybe you learn about the conscious mind, the subconscious mind. But what he talks about is the ego, and how the ego is going to stop you from reprogramming your subconscious mind. It wants to keep things status quo. So he gives you tools in his book on how to bypass that so that you can reprogram the subconscious mind. And one of the things that I thought was genius was his time-lapse method when saying affirmations and stuff. I have a law of attraction course, and I actually put his time-lapse method in the course because it's such a phenomenal way of doing that. Because a lot of people that they'll say, oh, the law of attraction doesn't work for me. And it's like, well, you're not really doing it right.
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the things that I've learned about the law of attraction is the law of attraction with action.
Oh yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Like, I feel like if somebody's paralyzed in a wheelchair or something like that, that's where you would go to like somebody like the law of attraction with like Joe Dispenza's types. I've read 2 of Joe Dispenza's books, I think. I'm a pretty avid reader, and and there is some things that they do put in there that could, as far as like quantum physics and self-healing and stuff like that. And I've never had to apply it yet to the best of my knowledge, but that's where things like that kind of come into play when it comes to that. But as far as the law of attraction strictly is concerned, there's got to be like a halfway meeting there. I can't just dream it and then not at least like work towards the dream,
Right. Yeah. And that's what my course is about. Cause like you talked about the energy being scientifically proven. The quantum theory stuff is fascinating to go down that rabbit hole on, quantum field theory.
Yeah.
And then you talked about, atheists and stuff, cause there's a whole spiritual explanation for it as well. And, it's interesting. You could say that the law of attraction goes hand in hand with any religion, but a lot of guys, if they're atheists, they're going to dismiss that. A lot of people can't wrap their brain around quantum physics, or they look at the energy thing and they're like, that's woo woo bullshit. And so they they'll dismiss that. So when I was developing my course, I was like, what's the easiest way to explain this to somebody that most people will go, okay, I get that. That makes sense. And so I explained it from the psychological standpoint, which is you're reprogramming your subconscious mind, and your brain's going to come up with epiphanies on stuff like, hey, I should go here today. I should do this today. I should look this up today. And it's like, when you get that, you have to act on it.
Right.
And when you act on those epiphanies, that's what will lead you to your goals,
Right. Absolutely. And part of it too is that now, if you believe it on the spiritual side, as far as like whether you revert to God, the universe, your higher self, whatever it is, you have to understand too that whenever you ask for something, that other things might get moved out the way. Okay. Yeah. I know I may not look like it because of the way I carry myself, but I'm actually pretty good. At least when I was younger, I was pretty good with women, right? But when I set my goals towards, like, this video podcast is very important to me. This is a culmination of my life. There are other things in my personal life that I'm trying to accomplish, all this stuff, but women have to be moved out the way or else it's not going to happen. So it's like the goal is in the way, or the goal is here. But then if you spend 5 hours a night wooing and dating a girl and then possibly getting what it is that you want out of her, well, then that's one night that you wasted. And if you do that 3 or 4 nights a week with this girl because you like her so much, that's one thing. If I was ever invited on that panel that you're talking about, the one that you did on Saturday, that would be one of my key phrases that I would talk about is, man, worry about your purpose, and then women are the outcome. You're friends with John Fitch now. That guy, I guarantee, he was the number 2 fighter in the world forever. That guy, I guarantee you, probably had women on the back burner. That's one of the things I want to ask him, or at least you could ask him.
I think
too.
He was married for a while there, and that's what got him into the men's red pill space, was because his wife divorced him and took him to the fucking cleaners.
Yeah, but I guarantee you that he put all that aside. Women, all that, when he was single, and he was the number 2 in the world at it, and women were probably the outcome because of it, just like now he's a well-known, he may not, I don't know if he fights no more or not. He's in his mid-40s.
No, he's retired from that, but he trains people still. He has classes and does clinics and stuff. Yeah.
But you see the hard work he paid in, and he's in his mid-40s, and I guarantee you he could probably get a chick in his in her early 20s if he wanted to.
I think he's got a steady girl right now. Yeah.
See, that's what I'm saying, man. It's just, you get what I'm saying, right? That would be the thing I'd be preaching on that panel if I was on there. Is that, man, stay on your purpose, man. Don't worry about it. Let women be the outcome of your accomplishments.
Yeah. Well, that's a big thing that I talk about on my show a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Women, like, you want to build a great cake of a life for yourself, and women are just the icing on it.
There you go. That's it. And it's unfortunate that we've all been there, who unless you were just like a really dull person who in their 20s didn't really think about sex all the time. Who didn't think about it all the time. And it probably, if you had the mentality that you did now, you probably would have accomplished more in an early age. But you're worried about doing this so that you can get this. Like, you're going to the gym not just to feel better, but you want to look good for the ladies, right?
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden you're spending like 5 hours a night, because you're taking her out or you're watching a movie, and then, one day a week, that's fine. Twice a week, maybe, but then you're doing that 3-4 nights a week. Come on, man. I wouldn't be able to if I knew what I knew then, or knew what I knew now, then I'd be a bad motherfucker.
That's my Ryan Stone. He's also on that panel on Saturdays. He's I don't know if you know who Ryan is. He talks about it as, basically, we have these needs, right? We need water, we need food, we need air, and like the laws of 3, right? You can live 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food, right? He's like, sex is a very similar situation. Like, when you've been without food for 2.5 weeks, that's all you can think about. That's all you can fucking think about. If you haven't had sex in so long, that's all guys can think about until that's satisfied. And then they're like, oh no, I'm good. Now I can focus on my purpose again.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, have you ever heard of the term no fap?
Oh yeah.
I know that seems like a dumb question for somebody like as an expert at what you do, but I mean, I did that for 4 months until I broke it with a girl, and it was just, I couldn't believe how much I accomplished in that 4 month span. I'm not just, and if those of you who don't know what no FAP is, that's basically, not releasing your semen at all. I'm not talking, you can't, no masturbation, no sex, none of that. And, you got guys like Nikola Tesla who did it for years.
Well, it's because Nikola Tesla was asexual, though. He just wasn't in a.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Wasn't into sex at all.
I retract my last statement.
Yeah, but no, I know what you're saying. There's a lot of guys that subscribe to the NoFap movement in this space for sure. What was I? There was a question I was going to ask about law of attraction, but I can't remember now.
It's cool.
That's all right. We'll go to the next subject here.
Okay.
So you had me on your podcast. You said you'd been following my videos for a while. Which platforms primarily?
You popped up on my Instagram, if I'm not mistaken. Somehow I was looking. I think that, I don't know. I've been following you for about 1.5 years or 2, something like that.
Okay.
And I can't remember if it was YouTube or if it was Instagram. I can't remember, but those are the two that were connected the most. It's one of the two. But when I started listening to yours, I was like, okay, this guy, I see more practicality with his thinking. When I watched your videos, I'm like, whenever I hear these guys that are like expert dating coaches, they're really just like, okay, you're from a smaller town, you're ex-military. I'm assuming you're not extremely wealthy. Like, when I say extremely wealthy,
I do pretty good. I'm in the 6-figure club. Yeah.
Okay, I'll get there. I'll get there one day. I'll get there one day.
Yeah. Well, most people don't think that though, because I wear a t-shirt and ball caps all the time.
Yeah, but that's how most smart entrepreneurs or even smart, businessmen are, is that they don't put their money in their looks or their vehicle.
Yeah. Have you ever read The Millionaire Next Door?
Of course.
That's such a phenomenal book, because they talk about how a vast majority of truly wealthy people, and I'm talking about people that have over $1 million in assets, they live in a typical suburban house. They drive like a very economical car. They're not, they don't have McMansions and fucking sports cars. And my friend Aaron Clary, he used to do finance all the time. He said that in his life he used to work with millionaires all the time, but he's like, he could count on one hand how many were truly wealthy, and the rest were all just swimming in debt, just ridiculous amounts of debt. So
yeah. Well, it's funny. I went to New York City in 2015, and I was at the Buffalo Wild Wings. Keep in mind, Buffalo Wild Wings. And I'm sitting next to this guy talking to him, and then he walks away, and I don't remember his name. I just know he was in this, and one of the waitresses goes, "Do you know who you were talking to?" I was like, "No, I don't know who I was talking to." She goes, "That's so-and-so. And he's like a billionaire oil refinery owner and has several other business ventures." I Googled him, and yes, the guy was worth $2.6 billion. You know what he looked like? He had on a white button-down shirt, some sandy wash jeans, and some Steve Madden shoes on, and he pulled off in a Ford F-150.
Wait. Are you saying he didn't drive a Bugatti? What? That's crazy. That's crazy. Did you hear that, guy? Is a billionaire not driving a Bugatti? What is
Let it go. Let it go, Paul. Let it go. Let it go. We're gonna get him through this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just gotta calm down here. I just gotta calm down. I thought you were supposed to have a Bugatti. Okay.
Yeah, to be able to pick up chicks and have a good life.
That's right. Yeah.
No, it's just when you talked about that, I was like, that you hit it on the head. But that just goes to show you, though, like, millionaires don't necessarily just do it for the money. They do it for I don't know how to explain it. Like, Warren Buffett has only spent 1% of his entire his entire empire, and he was the richest man in the world up until Bill Gates took the title. So, there's just something about it. And yes, you do pretty well for yourself. That's good. That's great. I hope to get there one day myself. But I don't think I'll be driving a Mercedes or a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or anything like that. A nice pickup truck will probably be the biggest thing I'll get.
Yeah. I got a Toyota Tundra.
That's what I want.
Yeah, I fucking love that thing. I talk about it in my law of attraction course, because when I got it, I put out the intention that I was going to get myself a relatively new. I never buy used, or I'm sorry, I never buy new.
Right.
So I always buy used. I was going to get a relatively new to me Toyota Tundra pickup truck, and it was like when I would visualize it, it was black, all black, TRD Pro edition, and I was going to pay for it in cash. I had no idea how I was going to pay for it in cash because I didn't have that kind of cash laying around, but I just kept focusing on it. And there would be times where, so I used to drive a 2010 Dodge Nitro, and that Dodge Nitro would have problems, and I would sit there and start getting pissed off at the car and think about what a piece of shit it was. And then I'd have to stop myself and go and change my thinking about how awesome my TRD Pro was going to be. This is just leading me to that TRD Pro, and change my mindset about it and start focusing on the Pro.
Right.
And sure enough, when that car finally died, I happened to have a huge payout that I got from stock options, and it was just sitting in the bank, and the truck died, and I go, well, I happen to have enough cash to go buy that TRD Pro now.
Yeah.
And I went and bought it cash. And I own that outright, and it was all just, taking action though. But
yeah. And that's another thing about maturity. Maturity too is like a big entrepreneurial type thing, or even like people that are successful in life, like yourself, is that they don't necessarily always have to buy new. They just have to buy what works above and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah. And you look at it too, like cars they're a depreciating asset. They don't appreciate. So paying brand new for a vehicle, when as soon as you drive it off the lot and you turn around and drive back on the lot and you can't get the same amount that you paid for it, it makes no goddamn sense to buy brand new. It makes no sense.
I listen to a lot of Dave Ramsey, so I get it. I don't know
I'm a huge Dave Ramsey dude.
Yeah. People always ask, my phrase is usually blessed. When somebody asks me how I'm doing, blessed and highly favored. But for years, it was always better than I deserve because of Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
So I get it.
That his book, Total Money Makeover, life-changing book. In fact, so I just finished a book, and I have a section on how anybody could be rich, and it's largely the Dave Ramsey method. And I break that down in a chapter from that, but it changed my life. That getting out of debt, and start working on, planning for my retirement, stuff like that. Life-changing stuff,
Absolutely. Great stuff.
Okay. So we first start off talking about how you found my stuff. It was either Instagram or YouTube. Do you typically tune into the full length, episodes, or do you watch like the clips and stuff mostly?
I actually, believe it or not, probably 9 out of 10 videos that you do, I do listen to the full length.
Okay.
So I'm actually, if I don't finish one of your videos, it's probably because I had to do something in the middle of it and I forgot to go back to it. But believe it or not, I've listened to, over the last year and a half, 2 years, almost every one of your videos in full. And, you have and I'm glad that you have a very responsive audience now, man. I'm hoping that it keeps resonating and that you keep having success in that, because you have a great audience as well. Bunch of Weisenheimers in there too. I love it.
There's some, dude. There's some trolls on there. YouTube's a mixed bag, man, for sure.
Oh, that's okay. Trolls make me happy.
They, I love the people that they literally stop what they're doing to leave a shitty comment, because that shitty comment helps boost me in the algorithm, which is nice. But what I don't understand are the people that enjoy the content and they don't stop what they're doing to leave like a 5-star review on iTunes. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't understand why the negativity will cause someone to stop, but what people love it, they just go about their day.
Well, you know, I had the only thing is that I will delete your comment if you make fun of my guest too much. You know,
Okay.
I don't like that. If I can find it, you know, I've had people. If you look at my, you know, in just in the 8 episodes that I've done, I've got trolls on there, and one of them was checking me. I'm like, you know, it's one of those like Shaquille O'Neal things. Well, your mother, I'll throw your mother joke out after that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, and it's funny because I have like mental health therapists and stuff like that on my show. So am I being immature by doing that? Whatever. But somebody made fun of my guest, Hawk Yunkins. Do you remember the show Tough Enough 2?
Yeah.
Tough Enough. You know, Hawk Yunkins was on there. You remember Hawk? If you watch, I don't know if you have Peacock or not, but if you watch it, he was on season 2, and he's just known as Hawk on there. But Hawk Yunkins, he was on my show mid-August.
Okay.
And somebody made fun of his teeth, and I deleted it. And because I mean, he's a good-looking guy, no homo, but you know,
maybe a little homo. It's okay. It's
maybe it's okay, maybe a little bit. But you know, he's a good-looking guy. It's just. But, you know, and he had, you know, these perfectly big teeth and stuff like that. But somebody was making fun of him looking like 2x4s or something like that. And I just deleted the comment. I'm like, dude, you can't talk about my guest that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I will, if someone's just being a complete tool all the time, just for my own mental health, I'll block them. Like, I don't need to see this kind of shit all the time, you know? So clearly my content's not for you. So
no,
let me show you the door here.
Exactly. So, you know, I'm hoping. I think your trolls, I've seen your trolls and stuff like that. They're ones you can handle.
Most of them are. There's a guy that follows all of us on the Rule Zero panel. His name is Billy, and he's kind of a funny cat. And we all think he's a little bit spurgy, but he goes into all of our live streams and pretends to be us. So he's created accounts that look just like us. So sometimes, you know, you'll like, maybe I'll be interviewing, I don't know, John MLD or Rollo Tomasi or somebody, whatever. I'll be talking to them, and then you'll see like Rollo Tomasi show up in the live chat. I know it's not them because I'm talking to the guy, you know, and it's that guy pretending to be him. And so we're just constantly playing whack-a-mole with him. And then he uses a VPN solution to change his IP address, and he just keeps coming in, changing his user handle all the time. And it's annoying, but it's also like, we also have the sort of mentality of, hey, we've made it. He's created an account of us. Like we've arrived.
I know. What's the old expression? Parody is the most sincere form of flattery.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, what did Nirvana said they made it when Al Yankovic did a video or a parody of their song. So I'd be cool. I'd be cool with that. I really would be. And in fact, I would encourage it. I hope there's a video imitating me or whatever, or one day, you know, those guys, you know, those kind of losery guys that all they do is make fun of other people's videos or commentate other videos. Like I have a podcast, and then somebody will take a clip from my podcast and then goes and commentate that. That's kind of what I'm hoping for one day, that somebody will do that, because I could call them a loser, and then I can say that, you know, that I've made it because somebody who's got maybe 100,000 followers on Instagram or Facebook is doing my videos. So
that's only happened to me once. I was on a panel show. So after Rule Zero, I do another panel show called Dragon Ship with Thor.
Okay.
And Thor
same day.
Yeah, it's literally like a half hour to an hour right after Rule Zero. We do that one.
Okay.
And so Thor had this episode one time where we were talking about all the women in the men's podcast space and like what we thought about them. and so I was on, Paul Benjamin was on, we were all talking about it. And I mentioned this chick named Torsha. And and what I said, I didn't say anything bad about Torsha. I said, look, you know, she understands this material really well, but I think, you know, like most women in the space, she builds a big following because she's cute, you know, and there's lots of simps out there. She got pissed at that because she wants to be taken seriously. And so she did a reaction video to our video, and she just tore me a new one up one side, down the other. And I was laughing my ass off. I thought it was funny. I was like, she wants to be taken seriously, but you know, like it's hard to take her seriously. So,
oh man, like I think that you have the caliber to be like a guest on Fresh and Fit and stuff like that. I really do. And I've listened to Thor since I was actually starting to listen to Thor when I saw the video that you guys did on Saturday. So I'm getting to know all these guys, man. I'm like, I don't think I'll ever be invited on that panel because I don't consider myself a dating expert, but I do know a thing or two about life experience. And and you get me relaxed and stuff like that, man, I could go, and so that's not the issue. But guys like that, you, Thor, apparently John Fitch is well known for that now because he knew exactly what he was talking about when he was on there, and all the other guys on there. I'm like, man, what potential that every one of you guys have to be able to kind of be on the same level as Fresh and Fit, because they're the number one right now as far as like the red pill.
Actually, I think Myron got a start on Rule Zero. He used to be on the panel back maybe 4 years ago.
It's Thor's, right? Or is it who's the one who actually like started that?
It was a combination of Ryan Stone and Rollo Tomasi.
And they're on those shows, and they're on there. Okay.
Yeah. Because, well, I'll give you a history of it real quick. We got time.
Okay, sure.
So there was this group of called the 21 Convention, right? Ran by a guy named Anthony Dream Johnson. He had a sort of like he had an idea to do like a TED Talk event for men, and it's called the 21 Convention. It was annual, and it was in Florida, and he started it with Rollo Tomasi and Ryan Stone and Rich Cooper and a bunch of other guys.
Okay.
And anyway, they had a falling out. Like Anthony Johnson accused Rollo of I don't know, talking to some reporter and then possibly doxing the guys at the event, which is not true at all. And so he basically severed ties with Rollo. And then after that, Ryan was like, F you to the Anthony Johnson. Same with Rich Cooper. Rich Cooper bowed out of that. And they used to have a similar panel show with that guy called the Red Man Group.
Okay.
And so once they severed ties with that guy, they're like, you know what? F those guys. Let's start our own panel show. So they started Rule Zero, and Rule Zero is based off of Rule Zero from the Red Pill subreddit, which is basically Red Pill is about male sexual strategy and positive masculine identity, and that's it. And so that's what the show's been based on since then. So after that, you had John MLD. I don't know if you know who he is. Modern Life Dating, John.
I know exactly who he is. Yeah.
Okay. So John MLD was on there. Rollo Tomasi, Ryan Stone, Rich Cooper, some other guys. There was a guy named Carl from Black Label Logic. I think Myron was on there for a little bit.
Okay.
And so those guys, they've been doing that panel show, I think, for 3 years now. And so last year they invited me to be on the panel, which was good. And I think in the idea with having each person on the panel is someone's an expert in certain areas.
Yeah.
Right. So Rollo basically is the godfather of Red Pill, right?
Yes.
Ryan Stone, he came out of the Red Pill subreddits, and he actually brings a lot of interesting value from this to the space because he brings a lot of the history of Red Pill and also people that you've never heard of. A lot of his material comes out of those guys. You have Troy Francis, he's a pickup artist, international guy, travels around the world picking up chicks.
I love it.
And some of the other guys, and I think one of the reasons why I think they brought me on was because one of Rollo's philosophies is like Red Pill's for everybody, right? If it's going to work in Miami, it's also got to work in Podunk Nowhere. Well, I'm the guy from Podunk Nowhere, where I'm teaching people like, hey, it works out here in ranch country too, So, so that's I think that's why they have me on the show.
Okay.
So,
hey man, that's great. That's what an honor then.
I think it's awesome. They're a good group of dudes. I like working with all of them. So.
Oh man, that's great, man. I definitely have. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then John Fitch. John Fitch is on there because a lot of guys in the space talk about how you need to learn fighting, right? It's good for guys to learn how to fight. Well, John's an expert in fighting, so that's why he's on the show.
Yeah, I mean, the only guy there was only two guys he lost in the UFC to ever. So he knows how to fight. That's for sure.
Yeah, and he was in the PFL, he was actual welterweight champion.
Yeah,
and he defended it 4 times.
Yeah, sure did. You know, John just couldn't get over. You know, he couldn't get past George St. Pierre. That's all. That was the only thing, man. But you know, and Johnny Hendricks, you know, he knocked him out in like 10 seconds or something like that. But those guys were top tier guys. It's not like he was a scrub ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, John knows what he's doing. Absolutely. And
oh man,
like I said too, just down to earth, funny dude.
I could tell. I like him a lot, and I like all those guys, man. I'm gonna have to write some of them to come on my show, man. I'm telling you, man.
Most of those guys are primarily on Twitter. So if you're active on Twitter, like they respond more on Twitter, I would say.
Okay.
They also respond to, let's see, Ryan almost never is on Instagram. Rollo responds to stuff on Instagram, so you could DM them on Instagram too, but mostly they're on Twitter.
Okay, I'll have to look them up.
So I was going to ask you though, like, so we've talked about some books. Have you read any of the books that I recommend all the time on my show?
I have not. The only reason why I haven't is because I'm usually in the middle of a book that, you know, I'm usually like 2 or 3 books behind with what I'm trying to do. And when another one comes around that I need to read, then I have. But no, I haven't. And I bet you half my paycheck that if I read those books, that it would probably improve improve whatever it is that needs to be improved already. You know, like I could be great at something, but if I read something from some of these experts like yourself and all those guys on that panel, I guarantee you that I'd probably be more than what I am today.
Yeah, the books. Well, the books that I recommend the most are usually like dating and relationship books, and there's there's 3 that I recommend. I call them my holy trinity, and it's How to Be a 3% Man by Corey Wayne, Atomic Attraction by Christopher Canwell, and then Dating Essentials for Men by Dr. Robert Glover. And like I would listen to those on repeat, and those things are amazing books.
I have read 3% Man by Corey Wayne though.
Oh, you have read it? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that was one of the books you recommended. I don't remember you mentioning that one, but
yeah. Oh, what'd you think of that book?
I thought it was really good. I really did. The only thing I can't get past with Corey is that he's a little bit too much of a prick in his delivery. I get when he talks on camera. I understand where he's coming from. You know, he probably it probably works for him. And I've been there. Like when I'm not in this dating mode right now. I'm in this focus on my purpose and then let the chicks come. That's where I'm at right now. But he's in that mode, but he teaches that mode of, okay, if you're just trying to get a chick, or if a chick breaks up with you, all this stuff, then he has his own way of delivering. And sometimes it could be a little stern, which I think, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I'm wrong about his delivery.
Well, I don't like his YouTube show that much. I used to listen to it, but what I found is that you just need to read his book, and he's very circular, right? So you go and read his book, and his book says, oh, go and Google Corey Wayne X, Y, and Z. You go do that, you find his video, and then his video tells you a little bit, and then it says, go read my book. So it's like, okay, you just need to read the book. Just read the book and forget about his podcast, and it's good stuff. It's life-changing.
Good book. Yeah, I read it like 5-6 years ago, something like that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's and he says in that book too, you got to read it 10 to 15 times. I had never read a book 10 to 15 times before in my life until I read that book, and then I was like, oh, maybe there's something to this. And then I started listening to his book and other books on repeat like that. And it's like, oh yeah, no, he's right. You only retain about like 10% of what you listen to or what you read. And so reading it that many times actually helps like fully cement it. So,
right. Well, if you read the book, how to Win Friends and Influence People, it tells you the same thing, so.
Oh yeah, and then a lot of his stuff comes from How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's it's good. That's a great book too.
Oh, absolutely.
Let me ask you a couple of questions about your podcast here, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
And we've talked about some of this stuff already.
Sure.
So is your podcast mainly a hobby right now, or do you hope to do something big with it and make it your full-time gig?
Oh, there's no doubt I want to make it my full-time gig. There's no doubt about it. I mean, my concept at this point is to interview people that create value in other people.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I had you on. You create a lot of value in other people, whether people like it or not, and whether I agree with only 90% out of 100 of what it is that you say or do, you're still creating value. And that's what my show right now is about. And it will evolve. Maybe I'll interview celebrities for no fucking reason, then they're a celebrity one day. But for now, absolutely.
Okay. And then is it an easy transition going from radio to podcasting?
It's a good question. Yes and no. Yes, because all we're doing is just having a conversation like this, and we're able to be a little bit more freelanced. No, because the idea of that wire in your brain that was broadcasting, and then when you're talking and stuff like that. And my dad wants to start a show, and I'm afraid he's not in radio, but he's got too much of that, like when you talk to him in person and when you talk to him on the phone type thing. I'm the same guy that you talk to on the phone now that you talk to on the radio.
Right.
So it's a little bit of transition.
So he's so your dad, he's almost like a different person when you talk to him in person versus on the phone.
Absolutely. He's absolutely, his voice gets higher. It's more, or not higher, but louder, more of a, the delivery is, it's too much like I have to perk up when I talk to you. I'm pretty energetic guy to an extent, but I don't have to be like the whole time, like, hey, I'm telling you, Paul, I'm just saying. And then the whole time I talk like this for the entire hour. That's too much. That's how my dad is when he's talking on the phone.
Okay. But but on radio, they do kind of want you to be high energy like that, right?
Pretty much. Thank God for the broadcasting side as opposed to the DJing. They did lighten up a little bit. At least towards the later years, because of the authenticity of it. Because that's what podcasting is. It's more authenticity.
Yeah. I think. Do you listen to Chris Jericho's podcast at all?
Absolutely.
Dude, I fucking love that. That's my favorite podcast.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things that he says all the time that makes sense about why he likes podcasting is it's like the listener's like a fly on the wall listening to a conversation. And I'm like, that really is why that is, why I like the podcast. Like, you are sort of like a fly on the wall.
I'm going to steal that one.
Yeah, I stole it from Chris Jericho. Yeah.
I love
just
Chris
like the walls of Jericho. Stole those too.
Fozzie's coming in town next week.
Oh, dude, I took Nurse Chick to go see Fozzy in Denver. Blew out our eardrums. I loved it. It was great. Make sure you bring earplugs.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that.
They, it's funny because we were walking in, getting ready to go into the venue, and the people were putting in earplugs. I'm like, why are they putting in earplugs? And then we get in there, and it's like they had the music, the instrument levels up so fucking high that you couldn't even hear what Jericho was singing, and it was just fucking loud. And then for a good week afterwards, I couldn't hear shit. It was that loud. So
I believe.
Definitely. But it was a good show. It was a good show. We had fun that night.
Oh, I'm telling you.
Last question about your podcast. The podcasting market is really saturated. So how are you planning on standing out from the crowd?
How am I planning on standing out from the crowd? Tell you the truth, I'm really, honestly, if I have to be honest with you, the goal is to interview the biggest guest that I can find at the caliber that I'm at. Okay. That's where I'm hoping to stand out at, is to kind of work away with it. My goal, and I don't like to tell my secrets, but I'm gonna tell it on your show. Here's one of my main goals, is that I want my podcast to be big enough to where I interview people that's podcast is not as big, and I bring value by bringing them on my show because my podcast is big enough. And that's why I want to have friendships and relationships with people so that everybody can help each other out. So that's one of the things. Like, if you look at, are you familiar with Vlad TV?
It sounds familiar.
Okay. Well, Vlad, DJ Academics, Adam22, and a handful of others. They're all have their own video podcast, but they all help each other out by referring each other's guests and all that stuff. And now they're all the biggest. And that's what I'm hoping to do, is develop enough relationships with people that I can help them and they can help me.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good way of doing it. Network. That's why I like to work with everybody in the space. You know, I like to, get on their shows and have them come on my shows. It's just networking is just a good way of doing that sort of thing all around.
It worked when I was on the radio.
Well, networking works everywhere. It's just a good life skill for people.
But the biggest problem with this generation is I'm gonna get my own. That's what they're saying. I'm gonna get my own.
I could get mine. Got to get mine. Yeah. All right. Well, Hank Russell, thank you so much for joining me, man. This has been a fun conversation. Where can people find you online?
On Instagram, you can find me, Hank Russell, no spaces, all lowercase letters. As far as my YouTube channel, it's the Hank Russell Invitation. I go live mostly on Fridays, and I'm pretty flexible about when I do my schedule. It's my damn show. But the Hank Russell Invitation, you can type it in and you'll find it on YouTube. And the Hank Russell Invitation on Facebook, which I'm still working on as I develop my show. But yeah, the Hank Russell Invitation on Facebook as well. All right.
Well, sounds good. I'll make sure to link to all these things in the description. Are you on audio yet? Are you on like Spotify or anything?
No, not yet. I'm strictly doing YouTube. That's a whole different conversation, but it's that's a whole different conversation to why I'm not doing any other audios right now. Just doing strictly YouTube right now.
Oh, okay. All right. We can talk about that offline.
Yeah.
All right, Hank, thanks for joining me, man. I'll give you the rest of your evening back.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Hank, thanks for joining me today, man. You're welcome back anytime. You're a good dude. That was a fun conversation. I wasn't sure what to expect from that, but I thought it went well. I love picking the brains of guys who worked in actual radio. So I sort of picked up some tips and tricks along the way, like mental notes when I used to listen to talk radio all the time. I used to listen to Howard Stern. I used to listen to the Mikey Show in the mornings in San Diego. I don't know if anybody from San Diego's out there remembers the Mikey Show. I used to listen to the Mikey Show and listen to them talk about sort of the backstage stuff of the radio business. And I try to apply some of that to podcasting, but I'm not a classically trained broadcaster like my man here. So just fun picking brains like that. And then also I like that you're a law of attraction guy. There's not a lot of us in the red pill space. John MLD is a bulldog mindset. He's a law of attraction guy, but otherwise, I think it's not, Rollo shits on it all the time. Rollo's not a fan of the woo woo stuff at all, but hey, he doesn't have to like it. You know what I mean? But he's a Christian guy. If you guys read Rollo's, religion, at the end of that, he talks about that he's a Christian. So, you got it. Christianity is kind of woo woo. It can be woo woo. A guy dies, 3 days later rises from the grave and stuff like that. It's kind of woo woo if you think about it. Okay. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm going off on a tangent. Guys, thanks for joining today. If you haven't done so already, please like, subscribe, hit those notifications. Sound off in the comments if you haven't done so yet. It's not too late. You can help boost us in the algorithms by doing that. And if you guys have been, chatting this whole time, I appreciate it. If you guys sent a super chat, thank you very much. I'll be sharing that on social media here shortly. But if you haven't yet, there's still time. All right. Even like a week later, you can still send a super chat. Okay. Follow me on social media. The links are in the description. Get on the email list, guys. list.comeonmanpod.com. You get your PDF with 20 dating app openers. And also I'll send you some stickers in the mail. Check out the Practical Law of Attraction course for the entire month of November. You can get it for 30% off with code Thankful2023. Join the beer club at beer.comeonmanpod.com, and coaching's available at gumroad.comeonmanpod.com. That's all I got, guys. Tune into the live stream on Wednesday.
This has been the Come On Man podcast. New full episodes served hot every Monday morning on your favorite podcast platform of choice. So subscribe now. Follow Paul on social media. The links are in the description. Now, go out and get it.